Hey guys, it's Steve Halleck here with TickTocking. Now it's no secret around here that Greubel Forsey is one of my favorite brands, and today I have one of their foundational watches that somehow I just never reviewed. So we're gonna take a look inside the white gold double tourbillon Technique 30 degrees in a minute. When I think of Greubel Forsey, I think of two main things. The first are their mechanical inventions, and the second is their incredible hand finishing. So first I want to start here with the actual mechanics behind this watch. It is a double tourbillon 30 degrees, as the name suggests. And this was their first mechanical invention, so they set out to figure out how can you actually make a tourbillon that is relevant in a modern wristwatch? And what they came up with was this idea of taking an outside tourbillon. So what you can see there that's in the horizontal plane is actually spinning once every 4 minutes. And then inside of it is a 60-second tourbillon that's mounted at a 30-degree angle. So you can see it there. So you can see the heart of the watch is actually two concentric tourbillons, a 4-minute and a 60-second, and the 60-second is mounted at 30 degrees, hence double tourbillon 30 degrees. The original invention of the tourbillon was in a pocket watch, where you always had the watch in a vertical orientation, and so you would spin it this way, and it would counter-effect gravity. Now in a wristwatch, of course, you're in all sorts of orientations. So how do you make it relevant? Well, this was their solution. You have one tourbillon rotating at 4 minutes, another at 1 minute, and it's at an angle, so it's always canceling out gravity on the wrist. And in fact, this actual watch, the double tourbillon 30-degree Technique, won an observatory trial as the most accurate watch in the world for that year. So now what's the technique part of this? Well, they did make the double tourbillon 30 degrees in a kind of normal version that has a dial. The Technique was their take on a skeleton watch. So rather than do a traditional skeleton, which takes kind of a flat movement and cuts through it so you can see stuff, they have this three-dimensional architecture as the center of their piece. So instead they built it up. And what you can see here is a real city under glass effect. You have two big mainspring barrels over here that you can see actually when you wind the watch up. Here you have a running seconds hand. Over here you have a power reserve. And of course, at 6 o'clock is your double tourbillon. Now each of these is built on bridges that extend up off the main plate, including this huge center bridge for the hands. The indicators themselves, the minute and hour hands, or markers, are actually on a sapphire ring that goes around underneath the dial. And the seconds hand, you can see here, is 4-tipped because it actually runs on the 4-minute tourbillon. On the back, you can see the result of all of this skeletonization and three-dimensional architecture, where you have these big open spaces for air and light and these immaculately finished bridges. So that brings me to the finish in Greubel Forsey watches. Now, a lot of people ask me, how does Greubel Forsey compare to any of the kind of greats of hand finishing? And the answer is, it's just simply better. Nobody in the history of watchmaking has sought to finish to this degree. Greubel is famous for having 100 employees that make 100 watches a year. So the level of attention to detail here is simply unmatched in the history of horology. And this has a couple consequences. First of all, it's the main reason why their watches are astronomically expensive. What people don't realize is that you're so far into diminishing returns here that to go from the 98th degree of perfection to the 99th is countless hours of the most skilled artisans in the world's time, and it just really adds up. Which is why you just don't see other brands making stuff like this. Most people don't want to have to sell a watch that looks amazing at 100 grand for 600. That's just not their business model. But for Greubel, they're always seeking perfection, and that's kind of what they're based on. Now, the other thing that you see is not only is the finishing perfect, but they go out of their way to make it difficult on themselves and to showcase the perfection of the finishing. So that's something that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about finishing quality. You know, maybe you'll look at one bridge and say, wow, look at the finish of that black polish on that long titanium bridge. However, over here you have this grain finish, and on the red hand you can see you have its own finish. Here on the barrels you have these engraved relief letters, and as you can see on the wheels, the actual cutouts of the wheels leave all these internal angles that are extremely difficult to hand finish. You have the play of black polish, the gold chatons, the frosted finish. All of these things make the degree of difficulty that much greater and serve to showcase their technical prowess. So let me show you the watch on the wrist. Now, this watch is listed at a whopping 47 millimeters, which kind of sounds unwearable, but the reality is that it fits my wrist quite well. The lugs are pretty straight and they come right down, so we don't have any long lugs here. And this strap attaches to the case kind of deep in, which really helps a big watch sit on a little wrist. This one is particularly cool because it's on this custom-made green strap, which goes, I think, really, really well with this white gold case. Now you can see all of the depth of this watch and how it catches the light and plays on the wrist. It's really like nothing else. It's a true super watch, really like an exotic car on your wrist. Unfortunately, has the price tag of one too, but there's just nothing like this in the world. This is the highest quality stuff that there is, and you gotta pay to play in this area. Wow. So these watches, it's really always a privilege to put one of these on the wrist. When you evaluate what makes a great watch, my main criteria is, did the company end up achieving what it is that they set out to achieve? And the double tourbillon technique is a perfect example of this. Now, Greubel Forsey is all about mechanics, mechanical solutions and inventions, and tip-top hand finishing. And the technique really showcases both. So I hope that you could really see exactly why this piece achieves this sort of pantheon level status that it deserves. This is one of the great Greubel Forseys, and in such, one of the great watches. I'm really happy that I got to bring it to you, and I'll be back soon with another review.